I got very sick, and so everything stopped for quite a while. I can say this now in this way. Obviously, at the time, I didn't see it like that, but I was kind of given this gift of my life being paused for 3 years.
So that's very individual for everyone.
Exactly. So yes, I love going to the spa. A lot of different things. And I kind of think about it as a table. And so a table has 4 legs, and on one leg, there's medication. And sometimes I need to take it. So when I was younger, I worked at Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And I remember doing a training when I first started there, and there was this pie chart, and it was like split into things. And I can't remember that.
Very on brand, huh?
Oh, it's very on brand.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dreamers Club. Today I have Gemma with us.
Hello.
Hello, thanks for being here.
Very excited to be here. It's nice to be on this couch doing something in such a comfortable position. It's not normal.
Yeah.
Normally sat up very straight and very, it's all very professional, whereas this is way more comfortable.
Exactly, that's the whole point of us. Because we want to get through your core today.
Okay, well, I will open up on a couch. I will be the patient. Normally I'm the one doing the questions, but I'm quite happy to answer them today.
Perfect. So why don't we start there? Want to introduce a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your story about Spain.
Okay,
How long do
we have on this podcast? So I am Gemma Lee Edelman, and I'm a social coach. I wasn't always in another life. I was a teacher for a very long time. I moved out here to Spain full time in 2005, and I was never ever going to teach. All of my family were teachers. I was like, no, thank you very much. I won't be doing that. But teaching kind of found me, and I fell into it and then fell in love with it, and, really loved what I was doing for a very long time. I had my own academy and things were going very well.
So you were teaching Spanish or languages, right?
Languages, so Spanish, English, and then the equivalent of Spanish language and linguistics for a long time. But at the academy, we covered everything. So we did academic support from primary all the way up to university. So so there I was, living my life, being a teacher, thinking that everything was going well, and I was ticking all those things off the list. That list.
The things that you tick off?
Oh yeah, all those things. They were, very quickly taking them all off. And then what at the time seemed like it, was all of a sudden, and obviously now with hindsight, I look back and it wasn't like that at all.
Not that sudden.
No, it wasn't that sudden. I got very sick, and so everything stopped for quite a while. And I can say this now in this way. Obviously, at the time, I didn't see it like that, but I was kind of given this gift of my life being paused for 3 years. And during that time, I figured out what the hell I was doing, who I really was, all those things on the list. Did I really want them? Is that where I was going with life? And then went on this journey, this kind of, this personal journey, where I realized that whilst I'd loved teaching for a really long time, I'd had so many different experiences in life that I wanted to share with others, really, and and use all of these experiences that I'd been through to walk through and walk alongside other people that were maybe questioning what was going on, or they were a little bit lost, or struggling with families, with their businesses, with their relationships. And so I decided to become a student again.
Oh,
I turned the table on that one. And then I started a kind of 3-year period of doing lots of different courses. And I ended up doing a master's in social coaching. And that is what I do now.
nice. Explain to us what social coaching is.
Yeah, not a lot of people know that term. They're like, social?
What does that mean?
Are you a social worker? Like, what do you do? So social coaching is basically based on humanist psychology. So it's a new branch, I suppose that's where I would use, of coaching that contemplates, I always like to use the image of a triangle. So on the one side, we have like, the cognitive side, how we think, how we process things, the way that we've been programmed, all those things that have kind of been put into our hard drive. On the other side of the triangle, we've got our emotions and how things come up, why they come up, what do we do with them when they come up. And those two sides of the triangle are very much how, I don't want to say traditional psychology, but psychology over, the recent past has kind of been moving. And then in the last kind of 10 years or so, there's been a lot more investigation and development with regards to the body, which is where you and I connected,
Yeah.
when we first met, and the importance of the body within all of those processes, and how things are stored in our body and how we can access things. So if it's too difficult emotionally, or it's too difficult cognitively, or if it's just something that we don't know, how our body can kind of open the doorway into that as well. And so social coaching and what I do, kind of we look at who we are and where we are, whether that be in our personal lives, in business. I work with, business women, men as well.
Mm.
But we look at it in that kind of triangular way to figure out which bits are working, which bits aren't, which bits I want to let go of and, replace with something new. And then we walk together and we figure it
I love
all
that.
out.
I love that. And you were saying that you got sick and it was kind of forced into this whole development, if that's the right way to put it.
It's a very lovely way to put it. Yeah,
Did you use all of these areas as well to heal yourself?
absolutely. Absolutely. And I was telling you earlier that, I did a live yesterday where I very much openly shared about my journey and cried. I
Yeah.
cried on a live stream on Facebook talking about this. But for me, it's important, first of all, to have these types of conversations and, to open the spaces for these types of conversations so that people can show up with who they are and what they are. But then also on a health side, one of the things I talked about yesterday was how my journey, and I will only ever talk about my journey because I think we are all individual, and what works for me might work for you, but it also might not work for you, and that's okay. But my journey involved a lot of different things, and I kind of think about it as a table. And so a table has four legs, and
Mm.
on one leg, there's medication, and sometimes I need to take it, and sometimes, like at the minute, I'm lucky that I'm not on the 25 tablets a day that I was a few years ago.
I remember the day you were telling me you're officially off.
I was so excited.
Yeah, I get that.
I was so
It's
excited.
a huge milestone.
Yeah, and it's also been a huge slap in the face, really, recently, when the specialists have said that maybe we need to think about taking medication again. And that's been a whole journey.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was cured
Mm.
and that was it. And I didn't need any more medication. And so, for me, being open, and I'm not saying that this is always easy, it really isn't, being open to this particular leg on the table, which is, sometimes medication will be necessary and other times my body will be stronger and it won't, but it's very much one of the legs.
Yeah. So what are the other three legs?
So that's one. The other one is food.
Ooh, my favorite topic.
Your favorite topic because you love eating, but also because you love to talk about the importance of what we put into our body. I know it's not just about what we put into our body, is it? It's because you actually enjoy every second that you are eating.
Love it.
Um. So yeah,
The good stuff as well.
we all love the good stuff, which is why, I mean, 80 to 90% of the time follow an anti-inflammatory diet. And I say
Love it.
80 to 90%
Yeah.
of the time because there are times that I choose not to, knowing that, there will be a consequence for my body, knowing that the inflammation will very quickly,
I see.
you know,
Mm.
happen and come about again. But It's a conscious decision
And you're
now,
aware of it.
and I'm aware of it.
Yeah, that's a completely different
Yeah.
standpoint.
So that is a very big, thick leg on my table. It's one of the most
Yeah.
important ones. And then the other two, one of, I mean, I say this as if it's not important. I also think that this is one of the most important ones. Stress
Mhm.
management, trying to minimize stress in my life, which, I have a business, I have a family, I'm a person, I'm a human. It's, it it's not possible for stress to not come about all of the time, but to find ways, one, to cope with it when it does, and two, how can I be proactive in avoiding those situations? And that's something that I work a lot with, the people that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe also already the step before of seeing that you're in stress,
Yeah.
or having that understanding, because I feel a lot of times people don't really realize they are stressed.
I think because we get into, this kind of automatic pilot mode.
Mm.
And so this is kind of maybe what I wanted to say earlier when, at the time when I first got sick, it seemed like this huge, well, where on earth has this come from? I haven't been sick. Now, with hindsight, now with the knowledge that I have of my body, of the reactions in my body, of the knowledge that I gained when I was doing my studies and walking alongside so many other people, I now look back and
There are
realize
signs.
there were a lot of signs for a very long time, and I just was on overdrive and, in this kind of automatic pilot way, but also that my norm had become, crazy levels of stress,
Mhm.
as opposed to now, my norm is this. And then when I get stressed, automatically, I can feel it.
Mm.
So that's why I think a lot of people don't realize, because they're at this level that it just seems normal.
Yeah.
And like,
All the people around them as well.
yeah, yeah. Or society tells us, again, we go back to that list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Are you taking things off the list? And the
The
list,
right order as well.
and the list can be so stressful.
Yeah.
And the list isn't your list. The list is just this random list that we've been told that we need to kind of comply with.
Mm.
And I think that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on us all. So stress. And then the last one is, how boring this sounds, enough sleep and
Mm.
rest. So sleep and rest. So definitely, I am a person that I need 8 hours a night. And if not, Gem Gems is not very nice. Nobody likes a Gem Gem
Not
that
the nice
hasn't,
version.
yeah, that hasn't had a 8 hours sleep. Let's just say that. But also just resting. So creating those moments of downtime. As a businesswoman, I now have, so on a Monday, I don't have any sessions. Like,
Okay.
this is from this year. I'm talking as if I've been doing this forever. No, this year, my new thing is, on a Monday, I don't have any sessions. So I have meetings and I have, I kind of like organize myself, basically. I like to organize myself on a Monday.
Like a CEO day.
Yeah, kind of. So that I start the week off in the way that I want to. And I feel like, okay, well, I know what I'm doing here, here, and here. And then I put all of my sessions into the rest of the week.
Nice.
But also things like, scheduling in going to a yoga class. So it's not an optional thing anymore. It's like on a Thursday morning from 9 till 10, that's in my diary. And my son plays tennis, and so I am his official taxi driver. And what I would have done previously is I would have had my laptop in the bag, in the back of the car, and I'd drop him off, and then I'd go somewhere and I'd find somewhere to work from, and maybe I'd just carry on the laptop, or I'd go to our apartment and then I'd quickly sign on and I'd have a session. And so I was, kind of like running backwards and forwards, and the stress of it. And now in my diary is, on a Monday and on a Thursday when he trains, I don't take my laptop. I do not have sessions. And if I want to go for a walk, I go for a walk. If I want to go get a coffee, I go for a coffee. If I want to stay there and watch him train, I do that. Or if I go back to the apartment and have a sleep, it doesn't matter. But they are times that are actually blocked out in
Love that.
my schedule now as a way to rest and, kind of switch off.
Very important. I'm learning this the last couple of weeks as well. I got exactly the same advice from my mom the other day. because I'm at that stress level. I realized that my stress level was just back to where it once was. Like, okay, I need to slow down.
Yeah.
And she gave me the task. You're going to schedule every day 1 to 1.5 hours and just do what you love doing. If that's going to the gym or class or just going outside or sleeping longer, whatever it is. So non-negotiable. Whatever you're offered at this time, you're going to decline it because
Yeah.
this is the time you need to fuel the rest.
And how's right? I was just gonna say, so here comes the coach. I'm like, so how's that going? How? No, well, not even how's it going. How does it make you feel?
The thought of it was scarier than actually doing it.
Okay.
So actually doing it feels great.
That's love the downtime. I love having an hour and a half to myself.
Yeah, no, and I feel way more productive and efficient afterwards. So the other day I started working at 11.
Yeah.
I had a walk to the beach. And one of the days it wasn't raining.
Absolute miracle. You wouldn't think that we live in the Costa del Sol at the minute, would you? Costa del non-stop rain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. No, it was great. I felt so good. So I'm actually pretty good right now. It's been a week and a half. So
But that's okay. You're doing it. The
Yeah.
important thing is that you're doing it. So you said that you found it, more difficult thinking about it than doing
Yeah.
it. What was going on? Like, what were the emotions? What
I-
was behind that, do you think?
I think just taking the time for myself was I felt like at that time I cannot work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not gonna push my business forward and I would lose opportunities, which doesn't make sense, like logically.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in my head of like, oh, this is not going any further. Like I think it's that drive of always more and more and more and more and
Yeah.
grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
But instead of just checking in and saying like, hey, everything's fine, you're still gonna grow, and even if not, you're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just that weird narrative that sometimes happens when you kind of go in that hustle and a grind mode
Yeah.
instead of like taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think talked with Kian before as well. I think it's about time that we start putting ourselves first
Mm.
and then our business. And my mom asked me literally that the other day, Sophie, when will you finally put yourself first and then your business? Because your business is not going to do anything if you're not working.
I think so. There's kind of 3 pillars that run through everything that I do, whether it be one-to-one sessions or retreats or courses that I'm running. And these 3 pillars, for me, they really are they form the basis of everything. So whether it be, I'm talking to you as a person, or whether I'm talking to you as Sophie the businesswoman, or where if I'm talking to you as Sophie the mum or the partner of, or whatever it is, that for me, these 3 things are the key to thriving, if that's the word I want to use.
So you mean the combination of those? So
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
just one of them.
Not just one of them. So the first one is self-love, which I know has all of these kind of like, flowery, kind of ideas around it. Oh, self-love, I love myself, and or I'm just running myself baths all the time, or going to the spa mask. Yeah, but I just do I'll do another face mask. But actually for me that's not what self-love is.
So what is it for you?
Knowing yourself well enough to allow yourself the things and the situations that truly give you peace.
So that's very individual for everyone.
Exactly. So, yes, I love going to the spa. And yes, I love having a bath. And that does form part of my self-love, of course it is on my self-love list. But also it's saying no to things when, physically my body isn't up to it, or saying yes to things that I feel that I should say no to, so like what you've said about this taking an hour and a half a day, it's the biggest act of self-love that you could give yourself, is saying, no, what is it that I need right now?
Yeah. And sometimes, maybe correct me, but I also have this idea of sometimes self-love might not feel the best in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say, for example, you want to break out of a job you don't like
Yeah.
and you want to start a business. That's the dream.
Yeah.
So putting in the extra effort after work,
Mm-hmm.
for me, is a act of self-love, because that's going into your values, so what you want to do and how you want to live. But in that moment, it might suck as well. It
So
might feel hard in that moment,
yeah,
but that also feeds into the self-love thing.
for me it does as well, but that also a very nice segue there. So feeds very well into the second of the things that I work with, which is this idea of values.
I know. I
For
dropped
me,
that nicely, huh?
well done. Thank you very much. Nicely done. Like our values for me represent like our own personal compass.
Yeah.
So if we are clear on what our values are as a person, in our business, in our family, in life, then it's easier to make those difficult decisions, like you say, that are absolutely 100% an act of self-love. And they can feel a little bit uncomfortable
Mm.
because you're rocking the boat because, the other list, maybe it doesn't fit in with that anymore, but that it's in alignment with who you are and what you feel is right for you. And therefore, even though it's uncomfortable, even though you need to put in the extra hard work, even though maybe you need to say no to something and yes to something else, there's a sensation inside your body that's saying, okay, this is still right, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think the combination of those two things is really important. And then the last thing is this idea of connection. And you said your mom was like, so when are you going to put yourself first? And we've been sold this idea that if we are to be good people, if we are to be good, successful business men and women, successful, husbands, wives, partners, moms, dads, whatever it is, we constantly need to be putting the focus outside, and we constantly need to be putting everyone else and every other thing above us.
Mm.
And so our priorities are crazily skew-if, and we get lost along the way. And that was definitely something that happened to me, and definitely part of the reason why I ended up where I did. And for 3 years, my life had to stop,
Mm.
like completely stop, because I was so off the path, so far away from the path of who I actually am. And I was just so busy doing all of the things that I thought that I should be doing that would make me successful, and they would make me, this good whatever, word I wanted to put after it.
And probably people saw you that way as well from the outside.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they did, but like I saw my even more than them seeing that. That was how I saw myself.
Mm.
And that's where the real problem was.
Yeah. And was it hard for you because that was then gone because you physically were not able
Yeah.
to do it anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Was that hard to find out what's left? Because you take that part of you out of the equation.
Yeah, like your identity
Yeah,
that you've given yourself.
yeah. And then what for me when I quit my job, I mean it's obviously a completely different situation.
No, but it's similar in a lot of ways. I
That
mean, I know
job
what you
was
mean.
gone,
Yeah.
the career and how people saw you, the company car was gone,
Yeah.
and then there was just me standing there.
Yes.
So
All alone and no car.
yeah,
Yeah.
until today, no car.
Yeah.
And then the question was, well, who am I? And that was tough for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah.
So what would you, if someone's in that situation, what advice would you give? I'm probably doing that as well when in the social coaching.
Yeah.
What tools can people use out there to start answering that question?
I mean, I think I'd always start off with this idea of values.
Hmm.
Go inwards, and so I have this exercise I do, like I said, in whatever scenario it is, but basically it's the same exercise but applied to different situations. And at the end of it, the person has their 5 core values
Mm-hmm.
with what each one of those values means to them,
Mm.
i.e., oh, I've chosen this as a value and this is the definition that you would find it. And I'm not interested in that. I don't care in what the real definition is. It's what does it mean to you? How does that show up in your life? How does this word, like, what's your feeling? What's it? I want to say, I just want to speak into ¿Qué está despertando? Like, what is it bringing up for you? Like, what's it inspiring for you? And then we would kind of evaluate from 1 to 10. Okay, so we know what your words are, we know what your definition is. Okay, now from 1 to 10, being really honest with yourself, how much of that is actually coming through? How much of that is being translated into your day-to-day life? And then once you've got that number, then you can start to figure out, okay, it's a 6 and I want it to be a 7. Okay, what would take it from a 6 to a 7? Or it's a 9. Great. Well, then I know that there I'm fine. Let me have a look at another one. And I think that that can be so powerful when we figure that out, because then we start to really understand who we are. And then we can bring different questions, problems, situations, difficulties to the table with this kind of personal compass that we've got of our own values, and start to put them up, side by side. Okay, so I've got this situation. How does that align with this? Oh, it doesn't. Ah, maybe this is why I don't feel comfortable.
Mm.
I've got this, I'll bring this here. How does that? Oh, look, this is like 4 of the 5. Oh, that's why. That's why I love this. This is why I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
And I think that when we're struggling, it can be not necessarily a quick way, but a sure way to find our way back to ourselves. And then once we know that, we've reconnected with ourselves, then it becomes easier to connect with the world from a different place, and from a place of more confidence and peace and, certainty about what we want for the future.
So it sounds like a tool to actually design our lives based on who we are and what we want to do,
Yeah.
rather than the other way around.
Yes. You've got it. That's what we should all be doing. That's what we should all be doing. And what is and can be very difficult for us, because the noise outside is so loud.
And so, I mean, I've obviously done the.
Exactly. As well. Yes.
So I'm talking from my own experience, but let's share that with everyone. So we can, because I feel a lot of times we have a business, it either chose us or we just like randomly stumbled into, or yeah, sometimes those things just happen,
Yeah.
right?
Like me with teaching. I mean, if anybody had asked me, I would have given it 100%. No, I will never be a teacher. And yet it found me, and then, I connected with it and loved it, but it never would have been a conscious choice.
Mm.
So I do think that these work quite often finds us. I think there's very few people that feel that absolute, drive at a young age, that they know, okay, this is what I was born to do.
Yeah,
I think it's something that changes and develops over time, and that's okay.
definitely. And I do feel we need these as well
Yeah.
to get to certain points,
Yeah,
because you wouldn't be there any other way.
exactly.
But like, let's say we have a business and we figure out our values then.
Hmm.
Do you see in your practice as well, because you said you work with business owners as well,
Yeah.
are there ways to incorporate values into these businesses?
Yes.
It's like, what is something people struggle with in that
I think
journey?
so. I think I would separate this into kind of two sections. So there's people that have things, physical things that they sell.
Yeah.
And there's people that have service-based businesses. I'll start with the service-based businesses. When you are offering a service, and this is the same with products as well, but in particular with service, normally you are the service
Yeah.
in one way, shape, or form. So I am the service because I'm a coach, and and it's me. If you decide you want to work with me, then you're working with Gemma. So I am the service. You know, if you're in marketing, it's the person's marketing experience that is the thing. And I think that quite often we want to separate those two things.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, no, this is my business. It's like, right, okay.
So you mean they deliver the service in a different way than they would be private?
They forget that the essence of their service is them.
Yeah.
And so there's a natural part of you that if you are going to be working in your best possible way, those values are going to come through in what you offer
And how you offer it.
and how you offer it. And I think that's something that we don't always make space for.
Okay, so just that I understand that right. So when you people offer a service, they sometimes feel they cannot be their true selves
Or
in a certain way,
or
or they limit themselves to, oh, this is not professional,
or
or
just don't even realize
okay.
what's happening.
So they do it unconsciously
Yeah.
because that's work
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's me privately,
Yeah.
rather than
Rather than just accepting that when you offer a service-based business, you are offering part of yourself.
mm,
And so there is a part of your values that will naturally come through in whatever it is that you're offering. And so it's not necessarily about changing anything. It's not about saying, "Oh, I'm going to do things differently," but just being aware that, you know, your business is you. And so if these are your values, there will be a part of you that's in this business. And seeing that connection doesn't mean that we then have to, show more, show less, be more authentic, it's about what you feel comfortable with
mm,
and knowing what your values are and just asking, how are those values coming through in what you do,
mm,
in what way, so that you can feel more comfortable at work. So again, it's about
mm,
coming back to you and your experience
mm,
within your own business, because I don't doubt that what you're offering to the world is good, but that's not what I'm talking about.
mm,
I'm not talking about how good are Sophie's services. I'm talking about how good does Sophie feel about what she's
mm.
doing. And I think there it's really important to take a minute and just reflect about, your values as a person and how that's coming through in your business, because it's going to reflect back on how you feel and the experience that you have walking through life as a business person,
True.
if that makes
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is for service based.
Yeah.
What's the difference to product based?
So I think it depends on the product. I think there are some products, so artists, for example, artists are very creative, and so there's a part of them that they are pouring into that thing
Naturally, or
just naturally. So I think in that way, they're very similar to service-based,
yeah.
things. If it's someone, for example, that has a coffee company,
Mm-hmm.
so, the company is a company that prepares, makes, sells, roasts coffee, whatever it is. They are offering a specific thing. And people are coming to that shop or their online space or to their market stall to buy that one product. And I think there, people think that there's a bigger divide between me as Gemma, as the person, and the
Yeah,
product.
because it's not directly connected to you as a person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it's because we're putting the focus outside on the thing,
Mm,
as opposed to the experience that I have as the seller of the coffee and the experience that the client has as the buyer of the coffee. So here the coffee ends up just being this, almost
tool.
this tool in the middle to create this connection between two people. And so a lot of people that have product-based businesses think that, who they are isn't important, and for me, I think it really is.
Yeah, I would agree with that because also it translates into how you lead a business, what
Yeah.
decisions you do when it comes to suppliers,
Yeah,
what are your standards there,
yeah,
how does your space look like?
yeah. The energy, without this going to kind of woo-woo and, like, "Oh, let's talk about energy."
Let's go.
Okay, I'll go woo-woo. But the energy that's surrounding the business and the energy that you're putting out into the world and that you're receiving from the world, you know, when we move from a place of connection with ourselves, what we then offer to the world, whether it be a product, whether it's, coffee, or whether it be marketing or coaching or whatever service it is that you're, or a beautiful painting, when you are doing that from a space of connection with yourself, automatically you move through the world in a different way.
Yeah, that's true.
And for me, what you then give out into the world is so much, I don't want to use the word better, but so much more special.
I mean, it's more aligned with everything.
Yeah, but it's more in line with you. So therefore
So,
what you're putting out, it comes from this place of connection, of peace, of confidence, of, certainty, self-esteem. And that's a great place to be.
Oh, yeah.
you know?
And that's what makes everyone unique, right?
Yeah.
Because we can do, like, two of us, we could do the same business, but we would have different clients.
Yeah.
We would have completely different approaches.
Absolutely. And also, two things. One, I believe firmly in collaboration and not competition.
Mm.
And so, let's say that we're both coaches. Like I collaborate with so many different therapists and mental health specialists and people in the field. And we all bring something different to the table. A lot of the work that I do with entrepreneurs is about people holding other people up, finding your tribe, finding your people, which is why I love the Dreamers Club so much, because that's what you're creating.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
creating this space where people can come and they can be and they can just grow together, even if they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, because you can then grow in the confidence of knowing that you are you, and what you offer to the world and what you bring to the table on paper might be the same as the person that's sitting next to you, but it's absolutely not.
I always compare this to retail.
Uh-huh.
When you think about retail or restaurants, we can go with
Yeah.
restaurants as well. We're not necessarily going to restaurants, to our favorite restaurants, just for the food.
We
We
yeah,
could get the
absolutely
food
not.
everywhere, anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, quality has to be fine, but we go there for maybe the chit chat, for the waiters that is always really kind to us,
Mhm.
for the beautiful space because we like the aesthetics of
Yeah.
it, or just the energy in that place.
Yeah. So when I was younger, I worked at Pizza Hut.
I
Did. And I remember doing a training when I first started there, and there was this pie chart,
Okay.
and it was like split into things, and I can't remember the
Very on
actual.
brand, huh?
I was very on brand. It should have been a pizza chart, and I can't remember the figures, the exact numbers, but there was one thing that stuck with me, and it was somewhere between 70 and 80%. So it was talking about why people come back to a restaurant, and the food was it
Yeah, I
was
can
like
imagine.
12%, and 70 to 80%. I want to say 73, but don't hold me to that. I don't remember if that was the actual number. It was about customer service. So it was about the
Mm.
experience of the client that went to Pizza Hut that would make them go back. So you could give them a bad pizza. I mean, you can't give them a bad pizza every single time,
But
but
you
you
no,
could
no,
give them
no, get that.
a burnt pizza once, but treat them in a way that makes them feel welcome, makes them feel warm, makes them, have fun and enjoy that thing, and they will give you another chance.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But if you give them the best pizza in the world and the waitress, is rude and cold,
They're not going back.
they are not gonna go back. And, like, I agree that that is the most important thing, and it's the thing that we forget to put our energy in.
Yeah, because we just assume it's there, but we need to focus on it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really true. A lot to think about there.
Mm.
Mm. But I do have another question, which we're now really abruptly changing topic.
See, just that it's quite normal for us. We just jump from one place to another. We're completely normal.
I just love the story of how you came to Spain as well, because that's obviously a huge part of your life as well, because you're born in the UK.
Yeah.
So how did you end up here? And what was your experience here in the first couple of years?
So I'm now this weird hybrid version, neither fully Spanish nor fully English. So I studied a double honors of Spanish and Italian at university. And when I was 18, off I went to this beautiful university in just outside of London called Royal Holloway. And I had this romantic view of what my life was going to be like. I bought a very long coat and, a very beautiful scarf. And I was just going to walk around the university campus reading books or reading under a tree. And it was going to be so wonderful.
Sounds like one of those romantic
Oh,
movies.
it was right out of either Jane Austen novel, mixed with a little bit of kind of like, magical Harry Potter land.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, oh God, it was going to be the
So
best life.
how was the reality?
Yeah, it's not like that. It was,
Well, I studied in the UK. There was nothing like that.
it was nothing like, I mean, the location was
Yeah,
beautiful,
true.
picturesque. It wasn't for me, is what I will say. The people that were there, how do I say this in a nice,
Right.
diplomatic way? I did the first semester, so I stayed until Christmas. But I very quickly realized that, yeah, that it wasn't my tribe,
Mm.
that the way that the majority of these people were living their lives, the way that they saw life, that they approached life, it just didn't fit in with who I was. So I went home at Christmas and said to my mum, yeah, I don't think I want to go back. And she was like, okay, but what are you going to do? So I decided that I would take the rest of the year off and I would move to Spain and carry on learning Spanish. And then I would start somewhere else in September. And she was like, okay, great, fine. So cut a long story short, I ended up out here on the top of a mountain in a very small village called Compita. And it non-stop rained for 10 days. It was like the heavens had opened up and we were all gonna have to build another new ark, just like, like Noé, because it was horrid. It was absolutely horrid, and I was like, "What have I done?" The worst decision of my life. I didn't know anyone. I obviously made no friends because all I did was go to this language academy and go home and sit inside my very cold house crying. Like,
Something a lot of people don't know about Spain, the houses get freezing cold.
and where I live, 700 meters above sea level. It is very, like, it's beautiful, really lovely, very grateful, love my life. But in winter, it's very cold.
Yeah.
And for those 10 days, I was just like, I need to go home. I don't know what to, and also I couldn't understand anything. Let me say that. So I came here having got an A in Spanish. I was like, my Spanish is so good. Oh my God. I am great at Spanish. And then I got here and was like,
What language is this?
I don't understand a word. And I couldn't communicate with anyone. And yeah, it was a big shock to the system, to be honest. It was a bit of a mess. And yes, I wanted to go home, but my cousin, she was like, keep going for a little while. And in a couple of weeks later, it was going to be Easter. And she's like, I'll come out with my boyfriend and his friend, and we'll have 10 days. And then if you still don't want to come home, if you still don't want to stay, sorry, come back with me. So I was like, oh, right, okay, so I'll just put up with it. Obviously, when she came, we started to go out. And one night, one fateful night,
Hello, let's go.
I made my first friend, a man called, well, a boy, absolute child at the time.
That's like 19, 20 years
We were
ago?
19. Well, we were 19, so it was 24 years ago. Yeah, I met this boy in a nightclub and he was like, do you want to come out and meet my friends tomorrow? And I was like, okay, all right. So I did. Um, so yeah, I met this person who was my very first friend here in Spain. And little by little, he wasn't my friend anymore.
I was waiting for that.
He wasn't my friend anymore. And come September, I then rang my mum again and was like, Mum, I'm not coming home. I'm in love. And she was like, ugh, just come home.
How old were you at the time?
19.
19.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I've met the man of
One.
my dreams. I've met the one. I'm going to stay in Spain. And she was like, no.
That's probably what every mom wants to.
And she was right. And she was like, yeah, he might be the one, but you still need to come home. And so I did. And, came home and was like, bye. And thought,
That's it.
I never thought that this long distance thing would go anywhere. And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely not built for that. So, I was heartbroken and I did think that he was the one, but there was a part of me that thought that this was just gonna fizzle out. And 24 years later, here we are married and it didn't fizzle out. So so those 4 years of my degree.
What did you do your degree in then? Did you go back to the same?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Italian and Spanish.
To the same university?
No, a different one. I went to Manchester.
Okay.
Yeah, had a great time. So we figured it out over those 4 years. He moved to England for a year. I moved to Italy for a year. When he was here and I was there, I'd come back every 4 to 6 weeks. And somehow we made it work. And then 2 weeks after I graduated, I moved out here full time.
Nice.
And then I've been here since 2005.
Yeah, so you knew the place already.
I did, but it was still really difficult.
Mm. What was the
Really
most
difficult.
difficult part? Because I mean, obviously, a lot of us, we just move here and have a very international crowd
Yeah.
now. But I'm assuming in Competa back then.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And what I'm going to say is going to sound weird because, Jose and I had been together for 4 years by that point. I very much had my friends. I'm very close to his family. In fact, when I moved over here full time in 2005, we lived with his parents for a year and a half whilst we were finishing our house and all of those things. So I walked into this ready-made life, and on paper, apart from my mom and my sister not being here, there was no reason for me to feel lonely. There was no reason for me to feel alone and struggling because I had this huge support system and I'd come for love. I was in love with, the man of my dreams. But it was really hard and I felt really lonely. And it took me, because whilst I did have friends and I did have this friendship circle, people that I'm still friends with to this day and I love them, they weren't my people.
Mm.
They weren't maybe, going back thinking about it, going back to this idea of values. So they are people that I, love spending time with them and they're great. And we've got, 24, 25 years of life experience together. And now, we've got kids that are friends and it's beautiful. When I think about, what my values are and the things that are important for me and, my people, to quote, Grey's Anatomy, like, you are my person. My people are not those people. They are really important in my life and they form part of my day to day. And I'm so grateful for everything that I've lived through with them. But the people that I turn to when it all gets complicated are probably not them. They're probably others. One of them being my best friend, Shelley, from uni. We lived in Italy together. She is one of my people because maybe our values align. Not completely. I mean, we are black and white. We are complete opposites, but there's just a different type of connection.
I know what you mean.
And it took me a long time to find my people here in Spain.
Why do you think that is? Or was? Was it the location? Was it the time?
Not necessarily the location, maybe. I think if I'm being completely honest, I think there was a part of me that wasn't ready to open myself up in the way that I had maybe, with Shelley. So Shelley and I, our relationship started one fateful night.
A lot of fateful nights.
There was a lot of fateful nights in Italy. So we were going to live together. Like, we knew each other from uni, but, we weren't friends. And I was flying in the morning and she was flying in the evening to Pisa, and I had like these 2 huge suitcases and like a laptop bag, because you still had a laptop bag then, and a rucksack. And I'd found us somewhere to live. So I turned up in Pisa. It was raining. All these fateful nights have a lot to do with rain as well. So it was pouring down with rain, and I turned up at the apartment where we were going to be living, and there was no one there. And I couldn't get a hold of them. And I was panicking. And I was like, what do I do? And so what did I do? I rang my mom. I was like, Jos, help me. And she was like, don't worry, it's all going to be fine. And then I rang Shelley and was like, we've got nowhere to live. So she was in a panic and on the phone to her mom. So thankfully we had moms that then were like, they spoke to each other and booked us into a hotel. But those 12 hours of panic by myself in Pisa, when she arrived at the airport, I went to meet her. Which I probably wouldn't have done had we've had this apartment. I went to meet her and basically ran towards her and threw myself at her as she walked through the door. I was like, shh. Yeah, and she was a little bit overwhelmed and was like, "This weird person won't get off me." But we went back to the hotel and stayed up all night, literally all night, and shared our life stories.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like a lot of times we build connections in exactly the moments we're struggling.
Yeah.
Not like all of the times.
No, 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 but it's a moment where we are at our most
And
vulnerable.
both are.
Yeah.
And then you open that door.
Yeah.
And I feel this at home as well. When you have your set surroundings, you have your friends group, you have your family, you're not necessarily in the place where you're super open to let other people in.
Well, you don't need to.
Because exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel this is what happens here as well. You come in as an outsider.
Mhm.
You are an outsider. You come in, you are open, you're there.
Yeah.
But the doors are not open on the other side, or at least not as you would wish to be open.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
yeah, I feel that's why a lot of us here connect with internationals.
Because
We
you're
are
all in a
staying
similar situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you found your tribe after a while.
I did. I did.
Love that.
Yeah. But actually, I'm just thinking about what you said, and like, there's cultural differences as well.
Yeah.
So Jose and I have now been together longer than we've not been together,
Yeah.
which is very weird.
That's crazy to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes me feel older than I should. I'm like,
I mean, you all got together quite young.
so yeah, but because we got together when we were 19, that was it. We got together with children. Yeah, it's because of that. But even though we've shared, such a huge part of our lives together, there's still cultural differences. And there are still things that I might say or do, and he'll roll his eyes and be like, she's such a weirdo, because he'll never get it because, I am British
Yeah.
and he is Spanish.
Yeah.
I was going to say Italian. He is not Italian. He is Spanish. And I think that, there are certain elements. I'm going to use the word divide, even though it sounds like a really negative kind of word to use. But there's always going to be this little bit of a gap. And the gap doesn't have to be something, it doesn't have to be negative, because there's so much more that we both bring to the table, that the sum of both of us is this incredible mishmash of everything. But I think that's another thing when you arrive from a different country and you have your way of, viewing the world and your experiences and your customs and your cultures. And then you come here, and if you come across people maybe that haven't left this and seen how other cultures work, that it can be harder to create a space where that is embraced, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
It definitely does. It is always interesting when different cultures come together.
Yeah.
And I think it definitely helps if people are aware of the different cultures and that we just have that clash right now.
Which you in the Dreamers Club have
we
that
do.
naturally.
Yeah.
But you have it naturally because it's a loop of people that have all left. So you automatically have something in common.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing when other cultures come to Germany, or like I grew up in a super tiny small village, right? There you are like a weirdo. Like if someone from outside comes in and like tries to integrate, right, it's a different story because most of the people haven't left. So they have lived there their whole lives, and for them it's fine.
Yeah.
But then someone coming from the outside, you don't have that level of awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different story.
And I think that can be hard as an outsider going in.
Yeah.
And it can, it can be a tough journey to
navigate.
Yeah, to navigate.
And I think that there are so many emotions involved, from feeling lonely, misunderstood, to not being accepted, but at the same time, this is your dream.
Yeah.
You actively decided to do that. You're not there because you have to, but because you want to.
Yeah, but it can make you question it. That's the thing,
Exactly.
Then all of a sudden you're questioning your death and you're questioning everything that you wanted because you don't feel. I think a lot of time you just feel so lonely.
Yeah.
And being lonely is really hard.
Yeah. That's exactly why we started the Dreamers Club.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest compliment I could get, is when someone says, I just feel a little lonely, less lonely. I just walk out of this meeting and feeling like I connect and I belong.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta go. That's
But
that's it.
it's this idea and the importance of connection.
And we are human beings. We
Yeah.
forget this sometimes.
Mhm. And that as a species, it's only very, very recently that we have stopped being tribal people. You know, we think that the last 100 years, 150 years is the norm, and it's not. And obviously, you know, the developments in technology and like they're wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And we live in this world where, you know,
There's a lot of opportunities.
yeah, like I work with people in, you know, I've had clients in Argentina, in Canada, in the UK, in France, you know, in Ireland, and it's not a problem anymore. There's no borders
Yeah.
anymore. However,
But at the same time, there are no borders.
yeah, on the other side, we've become so used to doing things through, you know, especially post-COVID, through a screen, through a telephone, via Zoom, via, you know, Google Meet and all of these things that we forget the importance of real connection, of touching each other and being in the same
Feeling each
space
other.
and feeling each other. And that's not like it's almost not an extra. That's what really.
That should be the base, the baseline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything else is extra.
Exactly.
That's why we don't do online meetings. People ask me, but yeah, they are leaving just to other places. If we could have online Zooms, like, no. I refuse to do it. I mean, business-wise, yeah, but in a Dreamers Club,
Yeah.
no. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the way that you know, the values of your project, you know, not just a business, this is more than a business for you. It's like it's a dream.
Oh, it is.
The Dreamers Club is your dream. And
Mhm.
so the values behind that is very much about this, you know, this physical connection. I also want to say that I think that this level of connection can also be created online. Like, and I never used to. And when, you know, when I first started, when I first went back to school to do what I'm doing now, I really questioned whether or not that same level of intimacy and connection could be created in an online space. And I have to say that it can in
Mm.
exactly the same way. I think the danger comes when we only do that.
Yes.
So when we
Agreed.
rely 100% on online spaces, and if you don't have any other option, I get it. It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
really good substitute.
Yeah.
But if we only put our attention and our focus there, I think there's a whole side of life and relationships that we end up missing out.
Oh, completely. Also physically, physical health.
Yeah.
We need the physical connections to be actually healthy.
And like you know, here it's been raining for the last 2 weeks and the sun's finally come out today. And I was talking to a friend in Australia this morning and I mean, it's summer there, but she was giving me a recommendation about something. And she was like, you absolutely need to do this. Like, cancel your plans. Don't go to Malaga. Do this today. And then I went, you know, as I sent her a voice message back and I said, I'm not gonna do that today because the sun is finally out
Yeah.
and I need to feel, you know, I need to be out and I need to just go and do things and I need to see people. And I met with a friend for brunch and now I'm here and we had, you know, we had some lovely sweet treats
Mm.
with someone else before we started this. And doing that in an outside space
Yeah.
absolutely has just given my energy levels this
Oh, yeah.
huge boost. So you're right. But then on the other side, there are times that I need to be so far away from people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to see anyone else. I'm all peopled out. I just need my own space. I need quiet. But it's about finding the balance.
And again, it comes back to your definition of self-love. Knowing yourself when you need what.
Yeah.
Love it. So, one last question.
Okay.
What advice would you give someone that might just have started out with a business and might feel lonely or struggle? What is like something that you have learned along the way that you wish someone told you before?
Ooh, great question. I mean, we've been talking a lot about the power of finding your tribe.
Mm.
And I think that there are different ways to find that in the business world as well. Now, obviously, the easy answer here would be network. Go and network.
Come to the Dreamers Club.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm going to bring the Dreamers Club in. And I do believe in networking. I host networking events for female entrepreneurs as well. But what I don't believe in is networking for networking's sake and just ticking it off a list.
Good point. Can you because I agree on that one. Can you explain that a little bit more? What do you mean by that?
So in my different businesses over, the last 20 years, I've been to lots of different types of networking events. And I've been to ones that have been very corporate.
Mm.
And I've been to ones that on the surface are sold as something more social, but actually when you get there, there's this real competitive vibe and, and you're made to feel not good as because you're surrounded. Well, no, I take that back. You're not made to feel. It can be easy to fall into the trap of feeling like you are not good enough in comparison to others. It's not that others are making you feel that way. You and I are very similar in the way that we coordinate events because at the core, so again, going back to values, at the core of what we do, whatever it is that we do, the number one thing on the top of our list is always real, authentic connection. So when you go networking, find spaces like that where you can be yourself, where you can show up with everything that you are and everything that you are going through. So I'm running an event next Friday and we've got, we're going to spend the whole day together. It's a group of 10 women and we're going to go on this kind of like entrepreneurial journey. But my main idea for next week is, yes, I want them to take away business tips and I want them to take away different. Of course I do. That's great. That's what they're paying for. Brilliant. That's what will happen. But what I actually want to happen and what I'm going to do my best to make happen is that by the time we all walk away from that space on Friday, that every single one of those women knows that they have got a whole group of people that have their back, that are going to be with them, that when they are struggling and thinking, why on earth am I doing this? Oh my God, I'm not good enough. All of those things,
We all have, by the
that
way.
we all have. It doesn't matter how successful we are. We all have days where we think we are worthless. We think we're making a mistake. We think that what we're offering is rubbish and nobody is ever going to want to work with us again because that's the truth of what, the voices in our head. And what I want for these women and for me is to walk out of that space next Friday and to know that no matter what happens, I'm not alone and they are not alone. And so my advice would be find those people.
I love that because there are two types of, I always compare it to two levels of networking. You can network on the business level. So it's these corporate, more.
Business cards. Have my business card. I'll give you
I want
mine.
to bring that up. I was like, let's exchange our business cards.
Mhm.
Or am I in a room with business people and I get to know the person?
Yeah.
There are that's two levels of
Yeah.
networking.
And you can still do business on
Exactly.
that second
And the
level.
most interesting part for me, my own experience, I had more business relationships coming out of the personal connections
Absolutely.
than on the business level.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I want to make business with people.
Yeah. And also, people don't remember a business card.
No,
People
I don't
remember
have
the
any.
person.
I don't have one actually.
I do have them, but they're mainly in a drawer in my office. I don't normally take them anywhere with me. But people remember people.
Yes. Yeah.
And so when you
Understand, agree.
connect with someone on that level, and if you can create that bond and that level of trust, then it's so much easier to, so if I've got a problem, I'm like, oh, I need this. Oh, I know who to call. I'll call Sophie.
Yeah.
Or someone else says to me, I've got this problem. And I'm like, do you know who you need to call? You need to call Sophie. And because there's trust created in that connection. And then you are more likely to recommend someone or to work with them when you've actually got some kind of sustenance to the relationship.
Exactly. I love that. That's a great advice to finish this podcast with. Thank you for being here, Gemma.
Thank you for having me, as always. This
Always a
was so
pleasure.
fun.
Perfect. And to you guys, see you in 2 weeks when the next episode comes out. Fun. Bye.
Bye.